What did another person do that accidentally turned you on? A few years back, I dated a pretty hot girl. She was a smoker and used mints for her breath. She would whisper or scream, but usually just whisper / oh duck during coitus. Fast forward a few years after that. One of my co-worker is a 45-year-old dude. He smokes and uses mints. One day I want to show him something on my screen, so he leans in relatively close to my face and whispers "oh duck." Very confusing moment. This is basically the Pavlovian response. Back in college I was hanging out with my co-ed group of friends in my dorm room. I think it was one of my female friends' first time seeing my room, because I remember her being interested in my stuff. She instantly saw the rubber ducky I had on my desk, picked it up, and started squeezing it at me trying to be funny. I didn't know how to react, because while other people were laughing, I focused on hiding my erection. Nothing else came out of that friendship, but I learned to stop leaving my duckies out in the open when company came over. God damn it. You always managed to sneak up on me. Senior year I had a trig teacher who was 24 and gorgeous. We got on quite well as student and teacher. One day, I was in a particularly crappy mood and tromping down the hallway. Someone called my name in a rather childish fashion, so I shot a glance that conveyed my mood. Then I heard my name in her teacher voice. I whipped around to face her and she growled at me while making a claw gesture with her hand before telling me to smile. That growl. Oh man. I'll be in my bunk. Co-worker and I were really good work buddies based in Houston. We were both late 20s at the time. We were sent to another branch for a strategy meeting before they flew us and members of the San Francisco team to England. We flew from Houston to San Francisco. The next day a flight from San Fran to New England, Boston, then on to London. Basically a ton of sitting and being uncomfortable for hours. So she had some sort of arthritis and was having a flare up and was extremely uncomfortable. She said her legs and feet were driving her crazy on the first flight. Much later on the flight to England, she was on the verge of crying. I said, "What if I rub your legs?" She immediately said please. Spent the next few hours watching a movie and rubbing her legs and feet. She was propped up against the window and had her legs in my lap. Raging boner for hours. The flight back she wore shorts and brought lotion out, asked me to go at it again. Raging boner. I was in middle school riding home on the bus. 4 of us in that bus were playing a truth or dare game from an iPad. One girl was dared to blow into my ear. We all thought it was weird and didn't understand why that was such a big deal. And then she blew in my ear and I immediately understood. Also, coincidentally, got a crush on that very girl shortly after. Me, male, and one of my female friends were at a party and we started to jokingly crap talk each other as friends do. I jokingly respond "how dare you" and pretend to give an indignant slap that, in reality, was little more than a pat on her cheek. She retorts "no, how dare you," and gives one back. Now we are doing fake slaps back and forth, but we start getting harder with the slaps and it quickly turns into a game of chicken. I was expecting I'd have to stop from cheek pain. The actual reason I had to stop was because when the game escalated and she gave me the first full force slap across the face I got really turned on. Like, as soon as she struck me, instant hard on. It was a learning moment for Fibonacci fanboy that night. I was having a tattoo on my back. The tattooist, who was probably the least attractive bloke I've ever met in my life, and I've met some ducking corkers, put a blob of Vaseline on my back to dip into to use during tattooing. Every single time he got more Vaseline on his finger, it was like being touched on the clit. A rush of desire went through me. I could have banged him rigid there and then. Luckily I just bit my lip and let him carry on inking. I had an orgasm during my back tattoo session because of the guy's voice, combined back touching, and vibration from the ink. I let go a whimper when it actually happened, and he noticed my entire body clench. He kept his hand on my back, but stopped tattooing. I sheepishly turned around after my legs stopped shaking, and said I needed a break. He had the biggest grin of disbelief, and asked if I needed water. Hold on to me and cry. Kinda feel bad about that one. Story time of my most shameful blowjob. I was kind of seeing this girl. We were into each other, but she was moving away. The morning she was moving she came round to mine, and we went for a drive somewhere. We were just talking in the car and she ended up crying. I hugged her and stroked her hair, and we ended up in a position where she was curled up in a ball with her head resting on my stomach face down towards my junk. Her crying and making me feel good because she was going to miss me so much turned me on, and I started to get hard. I was wearing jogging shorts and she must have noticed a bulge appear, and she just whipped it out and started sucking me. I could feel her tears dripping off her face and onto my balls and thighs, and I'm ashamed to say it turned me on. I ended up shooting in her mouth, and the sound of her swallowing my cream, sniffing back tears, and the feel of her tears still falling on me was amazing. She texted me later and said thanks for not stopping her, she wanted to lighten the mood. During a slow day at work, a female coworker came up and started giving me a massage for no apparent reason and without warning. She was rubbing my shoulders, and although I was honestly a bit confused and somewhat annoyed that she would just randomly touch me without my permission, we weren't really friendly like that. It felt really good, so I didn't protest. As she was telling me a story, I decided to look up from my phone. The combination of her massage skills, cute voice, and eye contact made me insta hard. I got super embarrassed and worked vigilantly to get rid of it before she noticed. I think I succeeded, but I'll never know for sure. Edit. Didn't expect so many people to read this, so I just wanna explain a few things. It's possible the girl was into me and I missed obvious signals, but she is super flirty by nature and she has a boyfriend, so I didn't want to get involved in that drama. I was also madly in love with a separate coworker at the time, which caused me to have ridiculously strong tunnel vision. Of course that didn't work out, but that's a different story for a different time. So, we were playing this game in some underground tunnels, where we had two teams which were competing to find an artifact inside of catacombs. If you came across a member of the opposing team, you were supposed to fight, and whoever ended up with their back on the ground lost, and had to go to the starting point and start again. But it somehow turned out that one team had mostly girls, and one overweight guy, and another team had mostly pretty fit guys, which wasn't particularly fair, but oh well. Anyway, when it came to fighting, of course, guys wouldn't literally punch girls or anything, they'd try not to hurt them but still win. So, there was one guy, and whenever our team would run into Thiz, he'd always go for me, and no matter how hard I struggled and tried to win, I'd end up with my back on the ground and him on top of me every time. It's like it was completely effortless for him. So, yeah, that's how I found out that I was into BDSM. Well, not really, I knew before, but this just confirmed it, cause every time I found myself on the ground with him on top, I just wanted to say duck me right now. Well, it didn't happen obviously, but I still kept remembering it and fantasizing about that moment for ages. I don't know if it did anything for him though, but I kinda wish it did. The year was 1995. The place was the Palace of Auburn Hills in Michigan. I was 13 or 14. My friend and I had tickets to see Rem play a show that night. I was really excited to see them live. They were at peak popularity and this was their first big tour in like 5 years maybe. Anyways, we get to our seats and show is about to start. This woman and a group of her friends are a row ahead of us. She had short brown hair, a tiny waist, and very thick behind. Black leather jacket and jeans that looked like they were painted on. Didn't think much of it at first until the show started. I was then pretty much fixated on this big bouncing booty right in front of me for the next 3 hours. That was the day I learned I'm a bud man. I had a friend I worked with that I'd had and gotten over a little crush on. Then one day, when it was just the two of us up front in the store, she started going on about some very detailed math about capture rates in Pokemon. Hardcore stats about how easy or hard it was to capture a given Pokemon in a particular game, right off the top of the dome. I had never been more attracted to her in our 5-ish years of knowing each other than I was in that moment. Seriously had to go find work to do in the back room to calm down a little. I haven't even played a real Pokemon game in a solid 8 years, I think. Didn't get on the Pokemon Go train. Just a good looking, nerdy girl nerding out on something she's clearly super into was like poison ivy's love dust to me. In college one of my professors was former federal law enforcement, and he picked me from the class to demonstrate how an interrogation might go. He had me sit in a seat directly across from him and demonstrated how he would slowly move closer and closer to the person being interrogated up until the point where he had his knee between mine. It's kind of a thing for me now. Reading everyone else's comments.